In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how I passed the real estate exam in 4 days. Now, what do we mean by 4 days? So for every state, they're gonna have a different time period in which you have to take the real estate class. For me in Idaho, it was 2 weeks of class, and then from that day of class ending and I got that certificate, I gave myself 4 days to study and be prepared for the test. I did my class on Zoom, which I don't necessarily recommend. It was really hard for me to sometimes hear what the teacher was saying, and I really felt like as soon as the class ended, that actually was the start of my studying for the test. So if you give yourself 4 days after your school and you were super engaged and really retained all the information while you were in school, then you are gonna be solid. Tip number 1 is gonna be listen to your director and your teacher. So hopefully they're going to be coming in probably at the end of your class time and giving you advice on what they think is the best and the fastest way to get ready for the test. If they don't, I highly recommend you going to your teacher and saying, hey, what do you recommend is the quickest way for me to get ready for this exam? Now this leads me into tip number 2, which was essentially largely the advice that I was given, or at least my interpretation, was that it was very quiz focused. So while I maybe would have found more emotional comfort in reading the text, page by page of the whole textbook, we had 2 textbooks, or maybe making tons of flashcards, and I actually started to do that and then kind of threw that system out the window when I realized it wasn't that efficient. In this situation, I really decided to just do nothing but get my hands on every single question that I could possibly do. Now, this wasn't even a matter of memorizing the questions. I was really going for the quantity, not necessarily the detailed memorization of everything. So I would check out quizzes that was in the back of every chapter during the textbook. I would see if there was any practice quizzes, like on a YouTube video, any sort of practice test there. In Idaho, there's a book you can buy that's a practice test. I bought that book and I went through that. I literally just did nothing but tried to answer questions. Even beyond that, which is kind of crazy, is that I didn't even try really hard to necessarily memorize the perfect answer. I was, again, really going for quantity. So I would even look up the answer and I would say, okay, I'd read the question, answer, that's what it is. Okay, next one, read the question, answer, that's what it is. What was good about that is I'm not only learning the information, but I'm learning it within the context of actually how to understand like how they write their questions. Because guaranteed when you go to take the test, you're gonna think you know all these facts and you're gonna read a question that was worded in a way you've never seen before, and it's a whole different skill set to have to learn how to take the test, right? So remember that this real estate exam is not your time to become a master real estate agent. That's gonna be the next part. Your journey starts after you pass the test. What you need to do right now is just do whatever you need to do to pass that test and gather all the information you need. So yes, you're going to be learning a lot of vocabulary, but you cannot forget about the part of learning how to take a test, learning how to answer those questions, and how to read and interpret those questions. Tip number 3, write things down. Now this is more of a strategy to help your brain memorize. This is different than flashcards. So for me, flashcards is the intention of then going back through the flashcards and using them to memorize. And again, if that works for you and you learn really quickly doing that, great. For me, I actually had a notebook, and originally my intent was to go back and review those notes, but in 4 days, you are so pressed for time that I actually didn't even have time to go back and look at my notes. It is beneficial for your brain to help you memorize when you write things down. So I would make it really pretty too. I'd bring out colored pens, and I would almost kind of enjoy and make it an artistic experience of writing down these concepts and how they all link together. All right, next tip is going to be improve your cognitive thinking. Okay, so this is maybe coming from my wellness background. I am a craniosacral therapist practitioner. A lot of what I do is to help improve the nervous system, but what also is amazing is I do a lot of decompressing of the cranial plates, and that to me in my personal life has become a game changer in cognitive thinking. Now, hear me out on this one. So there's a couple factors to this. One, you might hear in real estate school, they're gonna be like, if you really want it bad enough, you need to stay up all night and study and get this done. And I'm a believer of working efficiently, not just pushing yourself. So I prioritize sleep. Another thing that I did was I would do cranial on myself. For example, in the beginning of the 2-week real estate school, I hadn't really had to go to school in a long time. So I'm not gonna lie, I was struggling so hard to pay attention. I was so disappointed in my ability to focus. When I was looking at the quizzes, I had to transfer a lot of answers over. And so I was noticing that I could only really memorize 4 letters at a time. It was a very short memorization that I could do. After one day of a really intense, I did about 1 to 2 hours of craniosacral on myself. I slept. The next day I got up and I was able to increase that to 6-letter sequences I could memorize. And the amount of distraction that I was having was reduced by 50%. So that is still something that anytime I start to feel brain fog, I go and get body work. For me specifically, I love craniosacral, but wherever you're at, do not underestimate the power of taking care of your body. So that could be exercising the morning of the test. I would do a mini exercise, not enough to exhaust me, but enough to get my brain going, eat right, sleep. Those things, I'm just like, take care of yourself. That is going to make you really efficient in passing this test, even though you might be tempted to cram, let's say, and not sleep for 2 days. It does not matter how much you've memorized if your brain doesn't work the day of the test. Now, let's say, though, you do want to find that balance between optimizing and being efficient in your studying, yet also taking care of your body. So I would do a few things like I would be spending, let's say, 8 hours at my desk and studying the textbook and trying to memorize things. Guaranteed around 7 o'clock, my brain would just shut down. Like I would catch myself staring at the page and not understanding. I still wanted to squeeze out a little bit more. And so what I would do then is I would switch primarily to video or audio. So maybe I'd be cooking dinner and listening to one of the videos in the background, or when I was just so exhausted, I would lay in bed and watch the video. And then after that, when I was even more exhausted, I would close my eyes right before bed and be playing the video. Because I find that for me at least, watching the videos and the audios is easier for my brain to handle new information than it is to read it on a text. So I would use that sort of strategy planning and in the different ways that I would receive information, and that was able to really squeeze out a few extra hours a day in my studying. Next tip is something that I actually didn't do till after my real estate class, and I really wish that I had done this a lot sooner. I was staring at a textbook 12 hours a day for, let's say, 2.5 weeks at this point. I was having so much back pain, and again, what I was saying earlier with taking care of your body, it has been a game changer, you guys. I got a stand-up desk with a treadmill. I got it as cheap as possible off Amazon. I'll put some links down below if you just want to check them out. Really not that fancy of a setup, and the walking has been amazing. Not only has it allowed my posture, and there's huge detrimental effects to your body, to your brain fog, your cognitive thinking, your fatigue. If you are in this forward head posture and hunched over, and there's all of this compression up here at the bottom of your head into your neck area, you're not going to get that blood flow, the cerebrospinal fluid. You're not going to get all of those things that you need to be working optimally. So posture is a huge thing. I really recommend it. Not only that, but the motion and the bilateral stimulation of walking has been a total game changer as well. A tip on deciding when you come across a vocabulary term, kind of how much you need to worry about it. I like to think of it in 3 ways. Is this a simple memory recall I just need to do, like a vocabulary, like a flashcard, something you would put on there? Just one word and you just need to remember what that word means. The second thing is it might be a core concept that you really need to understand the concept because it affects many other different things, and it might require you to use some logical thinking when you're taking the test. So in those situations, I would dive deeper into the book, deeper into the videos when I'm studying on those concepts. And then the third one is this self-explanatory? Does the word already kind of explain itself? Then don't even try to memorize it. Don't even make it into a flashcard. You'll figure it out the day of the test. So yes, you could be extremely thorough and just try to memorize everything. But again, we're going for speed here. We're trying to get the test done in 4 days. So really, every time I came across a term, I would just immediately categorize those into the 3 things. And it would help me really just filter so many vocabulary words that I really didn't need to spend a lot of time and effort on. Here is another tip that is major, and this was recommended by my school. Is when you go to the real estate test, if you look at the outline, it will tell you the percentage of like the topic that's going to be on there. So maybe agency is 30% of the test, which is great because, for example, let's say math. I was struggling with some of the math concepts. Some were super easy for me, some were not. But math, at least in Idaho, is a very small percentage. Pretty much, if you do pretty well on the rest of the test and kind of do not do well on the math problems, you're going to pass the test. So this is really important to know. What I would recommend is you going to that outline, seeing where the, let's say 30% and above, focus on just those sections. Those are the areas in which I would go back to my textbook and I would read it a little bit more. I still didn't do a lot of page by page, word by word, but I spent 80% of my time just working on the parts that was the most percentage of the quiz. So go to whatever your website is, your real estate school, your website, the test, see if you can get your hands on an outline that gives you some of that insight, because that is where you need to focus all your energy on in the next couple days. All right, so I hope that helps. Just remember, on a daily basis, it's gonna be crunch time and you're gonna get overwhelmed and you're gonna feel like you can't do it. My favorite motto is the only way is through. And just keep reminding yourself and of all the progress you've made, all of the moments that you thought that you weren't gonna memorize things and you weren't gonna figure it out, and then you did, and you just gotta keep going. You just gotta keep going, and soon enough, you'll be passing the test too. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I am more than happy to answer them. And if you wanna get more content like this, make sure to subscribe. It really just gets me motivated and it helps me know to put out more content like this for you all. All right, take care.